I love making plans for my Sims, but what would it look like to make a plan for an entire community of Sims? To make a plan that connects them all? I think it would be fun to play each of my households that I've already set up for rotational gameplay to have a common goal in mind. What could that goal be, though? Let's brainstorm. So, first question naturally, what is the common goal? What kind of goal would make sense between these Sims? Tying into that question is the goal needs to be relevant for Sims across regions. If you've been following along with the last episodes, I have Keith Fox, who lives in Chestnut Ridge, who is connected to other Sims in Chestnut Ridge, Moonwood Mill, Oasis Springs, and Strangerville. So I basically set up my rotational gameplay across multiple regions or worlds. And so the common goal between the Sims shouldn't be just relevant to Keith and Chestnut Ridge. It should be something that would be important to multiple Sims. And so it shouldn't be necessarily tied to a certain world, right? So, for example, there's this really cool lot in Strangerville, this national park, where there's like a broken down airplane. And I was actually thinking, oh, it could be fun to transform that lot into an actual museum, like a heritage or a history museum. But then again, it's like, well, first of all, there's another lot I found in that same world that is already kind of like a library of sorts, an archive of sorts for the world. But at the same time, why would Nancy Landgrab from Oasis Springs care about this museum? I mean, she might be seeing some sort of financial gain in it, but apart from that, she's not really connected to the history of Strangerville. Moonwood Mills has its own lore. Each world has its own lore, but it's not really. They're more like within themselves, right? And I want to find a goal between these Sims that connects all of them. So that means actually to make it relevant for the Sims across the regions, it would probably make more sense to make the goal independent of the actual worlds. I wouldn't have a renovation of a building or anything of that sort, because that was kind of where my mind was going as well. But so let's scratch that. And then also like playing around with the word goal. How else could you put it? Project maybe. So it could be a project that everybody's working towards. In the Sim Guardian, so the Notion template I've created for keeping track of my Sims and their lore and all that good stuff, a Sim can have as an achievement type a project. So I can set up a project in the template and have them check off sub goals. And so I could actually, it would be fun for this common goal to be actually a common project between a group of Sims. I would create sub goals for this project, and it's something that they could work towards, right? To check off. Like maybe thinking of a project. I was also thinking, so we've got Christopher from Moonwood Mill. He's got this co-living space where he's taken in a teenager and another person. So Lily and I forgot the teenager's name, but he's taken these people into his space. And I was thinking he could be kind of like, because he's a reformer type, an Enneagram reformer, type 1 personality, and he is very much about responsibility and taking care of others. So I was thinking maybe he could lead some sort of youth center and a youth center of sorts, or some sort of organization to help maybe teens and kids across regions could be a fun idea. And then I asked myself the question, why would each household or sim want to participate? And what would be their role? How would each of them contribute to this goal, to this project? So if we're talking youth center, how would I even implement that? Like, are we taking care of kids from Oasis Springs, Chestnut Ridge, Moonwood Mill, or are we taking care of youth across the whole universe of The Sims 4? So I have this really fun map I like to use by Strangest to See, and it basically is a Sims 4 fan-made map displaying how the different worlds can relate to each other if you were to put them on an actual map. Basically, Moonwood Mill, Oasis Springs, Strangerville, Chestnut Ridge are, for me, in a bit of a cluster in themselves, so they're more or less neighboring, and that's where my rotational households are. So that's how I have these Sims connected. They're kind of like in neighboring worlds, or I like to think of it more as regions, because the actual world or globe, as you would think, is the entire map of all the individual worlds. So I like to actually think of a world as a region, and then of course each region has neighborhoods, right? So that's how I kind of like to think of it, because it's kind of weird thinking about a bunch of different worlds, then you're on in a universe in itself. But would this organization help local kids? I mean, that would make the most sense. I mean, it is a community goal, right? Like, it's not just a common goal, it's a community goal, like that I'm working towards here. And so naturally, the community would want to help people from its own community. And in this case, we want to form a community across different regions, but the overarching region is still like, in this map, it would be West Coast-ish area. So we're talking like the upper west part of the map. That's the overarching region we're trying to cover here. That's where the households come from. And so if we're talking about the community and what they might want to support locally, I wouldn't necessarily want to support a specific building locally because, yeah, I think that's too specific to a region. But if we're talking about taking care of youth from the overarching region, that of course would be something everybody might be motivated to participate in. And then I have the question like, okay, does everybody make the same thing or something for the goal or for the project? Do they each contribute something in their own, or do they co-create something? And then I was really like trying to figure out, okay, how would this logistically work, this youth center? Like the youth center itself, like if it's an organization, it has to have like a hub, right? So where would this hub be? And I thought, okay, maybe Moonwood Mill, because Christopher is from Moonwood Mill and it would be natural for him to maybe organize things from where he actually lives. But I also thought, okay, where would the youth be coming from? Like, who actually needs help in my world? Maybe the kids that get taken away when the social services come. That could be a group of Sims one might want to help. But then I was also thinking, okay, logistically, how do I actually get a hold of these Sims? Like, where are they? Like, are they in the household management tab, or how would we actually help the youth? Or also I was thinking, okay, maybe the organization doesn't have an actual pipeline of, down and out youth that they help, but they just create spaces for the youth to congregate, to find connection. Maybe we have workshops in these centers where they can learn skills, where they can meet each other, where they can just find friends and socialize so that they aren't, alone or abandoned, depending on the household they're coming from. They might need that support or not, but it's just creating an opportunity for the youngins across the region to find any support or help they might need. I actually think now maybe it's not just one hub that would be cool, but it could be hubs in each region that represent the overall organization and are like a collecting point where the youth in that particular region, so if we want to be exact, in that particular world, like in the region of Chestnut Ridge or the region of Moonwood Mill, where they could all congregate and collect and like find that support. But then I also thought, okay, that's a lot of work creating like one lot in each of these worlds for this particular objective. And also like Moonwood Mill has like, what does it have, like 2-3 lots? We don't have the space in Moonwood Mill. But then again, we have the Moonwood Trading Post, which is a really cool lot I placed in Moonwood Mill that is kind of like a all-arounder kind of lot. It's got a little bakery section. It's officially a tea bubble tea lot, the one with the trendy clothing racks and stuff like that. So it's officially that kind of lot. It also has a retail section. It has a section outside with a bunch of market stalls. It has a section where somebody can perform and perform music, for example. It's a very cozy vibe. And so I was actually thinking maybe there are specific locations in each region that while their main purpose, their sole purpose isn't to be the youth center, but they offer space within the building to accommodate for the youth, right? So maybe there's a section in the building that has workshops, or there's a section in another building that gives the youth space to play games, like a recreational center or something like that. So I was thinking that could be fun. And then I also asked myself, okay, we're playing The Sims 4 here. What tools does the game give me to make this even more elaborate? So how could I incorporate the club system, for example, or the holiday system, or any other gameplay mechanics into this? And I actually got to thinking about that one lot type, the community space type, that can be transformed into a makerspace, a marketplace, and a garden space. And I thought it would be actually fun because I know a lot of people, I saw this on Reddit, like to take that space and instead of focusing on the different activities one might do in the different versions of that community space, but instead just making it seasonal. Like you have a spring version, a summer version, a fall version, and a winter version. And with Cheats, you could probably just change the current version because I think officially you use the voting system to change that. But instead, you could just say, okay, we'll just change it based on the current season. And then I thought it'd be cute, since it changes depending on the season, to have maybe a holiday event for each season. So we have, for a couple of weeks, the space is spring themed, and then one day during spring we have a special event. For example, it could be the garden space is the spring space, so to say, and we could have a music festival or something like that. And the music festival holiday could have art and music spirit. It could have party spirit, fireworks, and people could give each other flowers. And then for summer, we could have the marketplace space be the raining space. And there we could have a market fair as a holiday where any proceeds from that fair, so anything anybody would earn on that day, we have a bunch of vendors then come in and selling things, that all of those proceeds would go to the youth center. So it's like also an opportunity to maybe collect donations for the organization. And one can also have a barbecue on that day. And then in fall, we could have the makerspace. Then we could have an event where it would be a holiday where we'd have an art workshop. So we would have art and music spirit. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like on a holiday you can set certain activities. And that's maybe where the club system would come into play. So I thought maybe we could have like an artsy group and just different groups for different types of skills or anything that we want to support the youth into their growth and development. And then in winter, it could just be the general version of the community space. And I thought it'd just be nice to have some sort of get together of sorts. And I really like Christmas markets, and they have such a cozy and warm vibe. And I also lately have been really liking cheesy Hallmark movies. And so there was one movie actually that's inspired me of what could be for the winter version, and that is a drive-in cinema where everybody is cozy with their hot cocoa. Hot cocoa was, introduced to the game with a base game update not too long ago, and so we could have like hot cocoa there and like a big cinema screen. I think there's like a game pack or a kit that was that came out a few years ago that introduced like this really cute screen that you could use. I don't know, I haven't played with it yet, but I think it would be really cute to have like a big screening as maybe a holiday. Like in general, it's like a drive-in cinema, and then as a holiday for this winter-themed community space, we could have a day where there's a big screening for different movies. One of the holiday traditions could be to tell stories, and festive spirit could be then another one. And then again, it's not really easy to organize I could have activities on that day and then like have the screening, have everybody come and watch a movie. Yeah, we would also have festive spirit and tell stories as official traditions for that holiday. And so I thought that could be cute. And then I was also asking myself the question, what kind of tradition could this whole project, this common goal be tied to? And yeah, it could just be maybe some sort of yearly get together to celebrate the progress that has been made within that goal, or it could be a tradition that helps the goal make progress. For example, we have those different holidays. Those could be traditions in themselves. You can see that as such. Like every year we have the market fair. Every year we have the big screening. So those could be traditions in themselves. And then the most fun question that I can ask here is, who could be the villain? Who could maybe try to sabotage or exploit the goal in some way? Who could want to ruin everything for everyone, and why? Naturally, with Nancy Landgrab being part of the Sims that I collected in my rotational gameplay, she would be the most best fit for that. Possibly her son Malcolm, who's the little evil one. So, and he is also a teenager in my game, so potentially he could, sabotage the youth in some way. So that's in one direction my mind went for a common goal amongst households. But it ended up actually going in a completely different direction. So you might recall from one of the other episodes, one of her goals is to create a training center for horses. She loves animals. And so I thought, why not tie that in to we are still playing a storyline here. Keith, we're not creating a common goal in a vacuum. We already established some relationships between the Sims in my save file. We already established the general goal of Keith and his fiancée, Sienna. So I was thinking, okay, youth center is all nice and great and could be still something I pursue with Christopher in particular, but I want to find a goal that feels like it is most organic to the storyline I already have in mind and to the way I'm playing my game already. And so I thought it'd be really fun, as the common goal is for everyone to pitch in to raise 200,000 simoleons for an animal rescue and training center. And I'm basically killing two birds with one stone with this goal, because there's this really nice ranch that Keith and Sienna were eyeing up, but unfortunately they can't afford it. It's like over 200K. They're not getting it anytime soon. They were turned down for a mortgage. Both being Enneagram Type 7. They were very much, let's do this shiny new thing all in. Didn't work out for them. They were forced to accept where they currently live, and it's all fine. We've warmed up to the home that they've settled into for the time being. But I thought this would be really fun. So that ranch, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous ranch made by SimCubes. It's in Chestnut Ridge, and it's got so much space. So it's not only the dream home of Sienna and Keith, but it would also have a lot of space for an actual animal rescue and training center. The ranch itself is split up in about 4 or 5 quadrants, so there is a space where we have the animals in general. So we have like some chicken coops. We have some stalls where cows and llamas could be, even a little bit of a training area for horses. Then we have the horse stables. Then we have the actual house. Then we have a little home on the side that could be used as a rental. It is a space that Sienna and Keith could rent out. And then we have a little gardening area with a greenhouse and beehives in the back. It's really cozy, really nice, and also a small barbecue area. And then we have another larger area on the lot that is just basically a grassy area where we have another training area for horses. And that's the area that I would actually see where I could build an actual animal shelter. So I would just remove the training equipment for the horses. I would keep the fenced area because I think that's actually a great idea, because that would keep the animals in, but they could still roam a little bit in that grassy area. And then I would build like a small building where one could house a few dogs and cats. And so that is the actual center itself. It would be located in Chestnut Ridge, but it would support animals across the region. That's how it could tie in and be relevant for everyone. And everyone loves animals, of course, so that's an easy goal to want to participate and contribute to. Who would own it? Naturally, Sienna and Keith will own it. They'll live on the ranch, and they will also be the ones to run the actual animal rescue center. Like I said, 2 birds with 1 stone. They get their dream home, and at the same time, the animal rescue center has its home as well. And also it's actually 3 birds with 1 stone. We also fulfill Sienna's dream to create a training center, because it'll not only be a rescue center, but it'll also be a center where we could train the animals as well. And that's actually also where I'd make it functional to actually be an animal rescue center, because of course there's no explicit animal rescue center lot option or trait in the game. You can have a vet clinic, but that's of course very different from an animal rescue center. I found some really helpful videos from Corey Cat Piccola and JNG. So there's the How to Have a Working Animal Rescue video by Corey Cat, Running an Animal Rescue by Piccola, and I Made a Functional Animal Shelter by JNG. They gave me a lot of inspiration for how I actually want to make this happen. So for one, I know which lot traits I want this animal rescue center to have. So I want it to have the training ground lot trait. That is, I think, if I understood correctly, a trait that'll make it easier to train cats and dogs. And then we have the animal shelter lot trait by Kiara Sims 4 mods. So that's an actual mod lot trait that will just let me have more additional options when interacting with Sims on this lot. So for example, I could ask for donations and just other things that you would ask or do on the lot to make it feel like an animal center. And then there's the Foster Family mod by Little Miss Sam that I actually had no idea. But one of those videos, the simmer explained that they use that mod to actually also have foster pets. So Foster Family mod by Little Miss Sam, obviously you can have foster children that I think you could eventually adopt or just, give back to the system. But you can also do the same with pets. And so I was like, that's super cool. And so that is a easier, more elegant way to get animals onto the lot that you can also foster. And, that would be the rescue part. And then that would also be the part where you can easily adopt them out as well, because it's kind of like part of the system, part of the process. And speaking of the adoption process, so I would actually collect pictures of the foster animals. I think that would be fun to keep like a record of all the animals that were in the shelter and that were rescued and helped. And then also, this was inspired by that video by Piccola. She has criteria that she abides by before she actually gives a pet up for adoption. And so for one, the animal needs to be neutered. You can, I think with the animal shelter lot trait, you can neuter the animal directly from within the lot, and then they just leave for a rabbit hole and they come back and it costs 100 simoleons. But also you can visit a vet clinic and have the animal neutered there. Those are 2 options. But naturally, if it's an animal rescue center, the point is also to keep animals from reproducing uncontrolled and just creating more and more animals that don't have a home. And so neutering the animal is like a priority. And then of course training the animals, that adds a bit of challenge, so that it's not just, okay, we take these animals in, buddy for a couple days and just give them away. No, I want it to be a challenge. And so I love the fact that one of the criteria that Piccola says needs to be fulfilled before giving it up for adoption is it has to be potty trained, it has to be trained to sit, to lay down and heel. Now, I'm not sure how much a cat can be trained, but obviously the dog can be trained. I'm also not sure if the animal shelter lot trait or the foster family mod or anything like that lets me foster or take care of horses as well. Obviously, a horse can be trained. So perhaps I adopt a horse, train him, and then give him back for adoption. That could be maybe part of the process because Sienna loves horses. And so naturally, I think this would also be a great opportunity for her to create a sanctuary for horses and a training center for them as well, because that was the original idea, to create a training center for horses. Also, another criteria is to have a good relationship with the animal and also to make sure that the new home is suitable. So whoever is interested in the animal and wants to adopt them, we first, check their credentials and make sure that, who they're living with is fine, that they're not already living with like 5 animals, and, that everything makes sense, that the animal will go to a good home, and then we can give it away for adoption. So that's kind of the idea I have for the actual rescue center in itself. Will, of course, evolve and develop. But I think this is a really fun premise to work towards. So we don't have the animal rescue center yet, but this is like the business plan, the play plan, the gameplay plan that Sienna has come up with. So we know exactly how we will actually be able to play the center and make it happen, but it won't happen until we've actually collected those funds. And so, of course, we have a strategy to raise the money. Once the Animal Rescue Center has been put into place and is actually running, one could host Ranch Animal Day events there to raise donations. I don't know if raising donations is one of the interactions that comes with it, but if the lot has the animal shelter lot trait, then one will be able to ask people that come to the event for money. So, of course, using the ask for donations option would be something that we could use to raise money independent of if it's the Ranch Animal Day. But the Ranch Animal Day would be a great way to bring in people to get to know the animals. Maybe they would meet animals that they'd be interested in adopting. And then also, the main way we're going to earn money now to actually get this animal rescue center running in the first place, because it's not even a thing yet because we can't afford that lot yet, is to get community members to earn money from their hobbies that they can then contribute to the overall funds, and so that we can save enough money, 200K in total. And then I think the 22,000 that's left over, I think somehow Sienna and Keith can make that happen with a loan. Because if they've raised enough money, I think it would be reasonable for them to be able to take out a loan for 20,000 or maybe even 50,000. Let's see. We can't have everything be pushed by the community, but the largest portion will be financed by the community because everybody believes in rescuing animals and Sienna's dream. That's how they will participate. That's the role the community members will play in this whole scheme. And then there's the question of, how do I keep track of the funds that have been raised? You can imagine, if I'm playing different households, it could be tricky to keep track of who's raised what. Also, while I'm away from one household, they might be earning money from their hobby, and I don't know how much they earn. So a couple of things I'll be using to help me with that. So for one, I will keep track of any earnings via the project that I've created in the Sim Guardian. I can keep track of transactions and net profit in the Notion that I've created. So basically, it's a profile in my Notion template that I've created that is associated with the different characters from the households that will participate. So 6 households in total are going to participate. So we have Keith from, of course, my main household, Lucas Wolf, Leslie Holland from the Eclectic Arts household, Nancy Landgrab, Christopher Volkov, and Juniper Grove, who is the wife of Umber Grove. So those are the Sims that are going to be leading the contribution for their household in this project. And here I can also, in this page, I collect all the details I have for this project. So the associated characters, the associated property, which is naturally going to be that huge family ranch. I also have in the profile the actual value that that ranch has. So I know, okay, there's a lot of money that needs to be raised to make this happen. And then I added some details about the project. So basically that as a community, Keith and his friends want to raise 200,000 grand to finance his new ranch where Sienna will run an animal rescue center. So those are the details that I've collected so far. And then also within the project details, I have a tab where normally it's called transactions, but I've renamed it to total saved, where I can collect the different transactions that the Sims contribute to this goal, to this project. And so, for example, I've added that Keith has collected 10 simoleons in tips for creating music, and he has basically added that to his own little achievement saving bank in his profile. I can see then he's contributed 10 simoleons to this project. And I can also split the savings by contributor because we have 6 different characters that are contributing with their specific earnings to this project. I want to keep track of how much they've contributed in total, because as my sub goal, I have that each one of them, so Juniper will earn 20,000 grand for the animal rescue with collectibles, because she's actually somebody who really likes to collect items. It's one of her, I believe it's one of her preferences or I think it might be a trait of hers. So we've got Juniper here. Her goal is to earn, that's a lot of money to have to earn from collectibles, but she's going to do it. And so she's going to earn that much money from collectibles. Then we want Leslie Holland, who is an artist. She's going to hold art workshops, and she's from those creations made through those workshops. She wants to earn 20K for the animal rescue. And then we have Keith, who wants to earn 20 grand for the cause with his proceeds that he earns from music. For Christopher Volkov, he's going to earn 20K in total. He's going to take a portion of his store revenue from the Moonwood trading post that I want him to own to contribute. And then Lucas, he will contribute any earnings he gains from writing or photography to the cause, also 20K worth. So that's something I can tally up here in the savings by contributor tab in my Notion template. And then I'll see, okay, Keith Fox has so far earned 10 simoleons, and then as everybody contributes, I'll also see what they contribute in the overall savings fund. So you can see the project also has like a piggy bank, and it collects and collects and collects money, and then eventually I'll see that everybody's collected as much as they needed to. And Nancy Landgrab, I think she'll have it the easiest. She's going to be a sponsor, and she's going to be sponsoring 100K to the Animal Rescue and Training Center. She'll probably be doing this in chunks. I think she could afford to do it all at once, but she probably wants to see her return on investment, so she probably won't be given all that money up front. But that's how I keep track of the project in the Notion template, so I can see, okay, who's earning what progress are we making, who is maybe a bit lax. And also, if Leslie earns that 20K quicker than maybe Keith, his 20K, she could either help him out on his end, or she could just earn more. These are just ballpark numbers just to have some sort of goals that I can set here. But then also, if she's earned the 20K, I can check off that goal in my template. It'll be listed then under the done items. And that's really cool, because then I'll see project progress. So in that case, it would be 17%, because we have in total 6 sub goals, for the 6 different contributors. And that's also a way I can keep track of the progress. I can also add new goals depending on how things go. For example, maybe the mortgage is also part of the goal, because 200K alone isn't going to cut it, because we know the value of the ranch is a little bit more than that. So that's a way I can keep track of the different goals and keep track of those earnings. But then we still have the trickster, like I mentioned, that I'm not going to be in each household all the time. I can only play one household at a time. And so the other households might still be earning money from their hobbies while I'm away. And to keep track of that, I'm going to use the SNB Bank mod, which lets me create accounts for each household. And I can funnel earnings into separate savings accounts with that mod. So I can create a savings account where I can specifically say income from a certain category goes into that savings account. And so I will try to have income from like crafted items and stuff like that go to those special savings accounts. And so that when I revisit a household and I check that savings account, I can see, okay, they've earned 20 more simoleons or who knows, and then I can take that into account in the actual project. So I could add those earnings to the project, so I can make sure that I really consider and keep track of every simoleon that's earned, because as you can see, it's quite a lot that we're looking to collect, so it'll take a little while. And so I want to make sure that I scrounge every single coin, every penny that these Sims earn, so that we can get the Animal Rescue Center sooner than later, because we need to help those animals. And so from the sub goals, I've already a bit broken down how everybody's going to contribute and how this is going to work as a whole community thing. So we have Keith and Sienna, of course. They're going to be the ones that actually run the Animal Rescue and Training Center, in particular run by Sienna. We'll have a music club, I think would be fun. Beforehand, I had mentioned that it would be fun to incorporate different gameplay mechanics from the game. So I think clubs would work really well. So we could have a music club that could be hosted by Keith. Unfortunately, I think any tips that are earned by other people in the club wouldn't necessarily go into his pocket, or I don't know, I could see. I can try and see, and they could like all collectively play music somewhere, collect tips, and then that's something he could bring in to the savings. And so basically, that's how he wants to earn money and contribute. He wants to play for tips in public. And yeah, also, there are other avenues of earning money with music. So, for example, creating songs and stuff like that. And so, any proceeds from that will go to the fund because I think Keith is, yeah, all over the place, right? With, oh, he wants to be a musician, a successful one, but he doesn't really want fame. Then he wants to have a ranch. He also is, as of late, now also a landlord. So, he's earning money through that avenue. So, he's a bit all over the place. And so, I'm thinking, I think music would be a great way for him to earn money just for the cause, and everything else he earns could go to his actual livelihood and family and all that stuff. And then we have Umber and Juniper. So Umber is Sienna's brother. Juniper is the wife of Umber. Umber is very down to earth, more to himself. Juniper, I don't think we know too much about her, but from her traits, I know that she likes to collect things. She's really good at that. And so I think we could have earnings from collectibles. And this is actually another way for me to have targeted gameplay that actually has meaning when I jump into the different households in my rotational gameplay. So I have not only a goal that makes sense for the sim as an individual, but I'm playing to a goal that makes sense and has purpose for the entire community. And that was what I was getting at also in my last episode, where I was talking about how I want to play my rotational households in a way where they're all connected and where it feels like it's just one story we're playing to and not just a separate one. And obviously I start with Keith as the glue, and then from that I build on the relationships and see how, you know, each sim maybe stands on their own, but at the beginning, I also see how they play a role in Keith's story so that I have like a starting point. But then as things evolve, everybody will have their own kind of like storyline and won't just be a pawn in the whole scheme of things with connected relationships and stuff like that. And now also with a common goal, I can play my rotational households with a little bit more purpose because when I'm playing each household, I still have everybody as a whole in mind and not just the household I'm playing. So it's not just independent of each other. So I think that's really fun that I have like that red thread going on, even though in Juniper and Umber's household, we're contributing by earning from collectibles. It's still, the purpose of it is for the animal rescue, right? To earn money for that. So I think that's just a fun way to have a different gameplay. Like I get to have fun with collectibles. Like I'm not much of a collector in my normal gameplay, but this is going to be like the first time I'll actually be trying to collect things. So it lets me have that variety, but at the same time, I know why I'm doing it. There's that common purpose in each household for why they're doing their different activities or hobbies. And so for Lucas, I thought it'd be fun if he's like the community historian who preserves stories across the regions, because he's a bit more of a lone wolf. I think lone wolf kind of vibe contributes to somebody who's a bit behind the scenes, takes photos. He's the kind of person that is able to get those candid moments because he's more in the background anyways. He's a bit more of a quiet one. And so he would be able to capture those candid moments and maybe I think also it'd be fun for him to maybe through his like maybe almost stealth mode way of being, he could capture some secrets that people don't know he's hanging around. And so he might be able to overhear some things. I don't know yet. He actually doesn't have a career yet either in the game, so I thought maybe he could be a journalist or a photographer or maybe a mix of both. And so in that terms, I think his contribution could be any earnings he has from writing photography in his free time, so anything that's not related to his direct career, he could use that then to contribute to the cause. And then we have Mark, Leslie, and Alice from the Eclectic Arts household. They are in Strangerville. So Lucas is in Moonwood Mill, and we have Keith and Sienna and Umber, Juniper, and Chestnut Ridge. And then we have Mark, Leslie, and Alice. They are from Strangerville. Leslie will actually host a art workshop. The meetups for this art workshop will be at the Moonwood Mill trading post, and she will actually contribute through any earnings she makes from creations from that group. So I know that having art clubs is a way that people can make a lot of moolah quickly in the game. That's a way they like to manipulate things a little bit. And so I think it'd be fun for her to have a group of, like a club of Sims that come to her workshop that create things. I like to think of her being like the workshop leader, teaching people art, and anything that's created during that workshop. It could be paintings, it could be maybe woodwork stuff, whatever. Anything that's created, those earnings go then to the fund. I think that'd be also reason why she might check off her sub goal first, but we'll see how that goes. And then we have Christopher and Lily. They are in Moonwood Mill, and so the Moonwood Trading Post will be the retail store that will be owned by Christoph. Currently, it's that T-bubble lot trait thing, lot type, but I'll change that once he actually gains ownership of the lot, and it'll be the hub for the community. So it's not only in relation to this cause an important place, but I want this actually to be a hub. Like I already brainstormed beforehand with the youth center and everything like that. I think this would be a good place for that to be as well. And so I want this to be a community market place where we still have like a yearly market fair, because I really like that idea, where we'll have artworks hosted by Leslie. So here I have a picture for those listening. We have a retail space, and then we have a back room area. We have a bakery area, and not in the picture, but there's also an area in the trading post where we have a place where performers can create music, where vendors can have their stalls. And so I think this is a really great space where a lot can happen and a lot of Sims can congregate. And so the actual back room is a space that I would want to change a little bit and convert into a space that Leslie could host her art workshops. I think it would be a great space. I really want to use that one kit that came out with the art studio stuff. I think that would be really great to add to this space, like some woodworking benches and some art easels and stuff like that. We could set that up here, maybe even some photo areas. And then this is where Leslie could come with all of her patrons, all the people in her art workshop club, and they could meet up and create here in this space. And I also want to host music events at the location. Looking at the picture of the Moonwood trading post, there is an area out in the front where music can be played. And I think that could be a little fun space where Keith could host some little small music festivals, maybe even. So there's a market fair every year. Maybe every year there's a larger music festival. But in general, he can host music events, or that's where also his club of musicians can meet up and maybe play for tips and stuff like that. So in the back area, we have a community garden, and then it could also serve as a youth center as well, just a general space where the youth feels comfortable to come and hang out, gain some skills if they join Leslie's workshop, or they can just grab a muffin, or I don't know, they can mingle with some of the entrepreneurs at their vendor stalls and get a taste of what it's like to be a founder, an owner of something. So I think that would be a great space, this Moonwood trading post, for everyone to collect and grow together, but also, of course, maybe do their hobbies to earn for that cause. And so Christopher's contribution to the Art Rescue Fund would be to donate a portion of his store revenue to the cause. So whatever he earns, let's say 20% of it or something like that, goes to the actual cause. And that's something I could keep track of in Notion. You might be wondering, okay, where does Nancy Landgrab come into this? So I think it would be fun, as I mentioned before at the beginning, it would be fun to have a villain that kind of like pushes against the goal, that has their own needs maybe at heart. And so the villain of the story is going to be Nancy. I've got Jeffrey listed as well. He actually is a bit more of a kinder soul than I thought. So when I dug into the traits, he's actually the yin to Nancy's yang, and I think he actually grounds her a little bit. But she'll actually be the string puller here when it comes to sabotaging that common goal. So her contribution will be the 100K sponsorship. She'll also offer her business savvy in form of a mentorship. So maybe moving forward, the animal rescue is still not necessarily a business, like it's a nonprofit, but it doesn't want to lose profit. It still needs to stay afloat. So even after everything's funded and the animal rescue is up and running, it still needs to stay up and running. And each neutering of a dog or a cat costs 100 simoleons, for example. So there are going to be ongoing costs. And so Nancy will offer her mentorship, her skills, her knowledge set, her expertise to Sienna and Keith to help them run the animal rescue. The thing is, though, for her contribution, Nancy is going to want something in return. But what will that be? So when you think sponsorship, normally we think, I guess she might ask that her name is everywhere. Like, she is also an Enneagram Type 3. Her achievements, her accomplishments, that's something she likes to wear on her sleeve. And Enneagram Type 3s don't have really that strong of a self-esteem. And so they really try to promote their achievements to use that as something to make them look better, maybe sometimes even better than they actually are. So they like to embellish them as well. But so she might want to be like the face of the animal rescue. She might want to be seen as the person, as this giving, generous person that is all for animals and rescuing them. And so she wants to have that image of a charitable person, that selfless and so giving and generous. And, 100K is pretty generous, but the thing is, I think she has nothing against animals, but she doesn't do it first and foremost for the animals. She does it for her image, right? So I think she's going to want to have something in return, and where the animal rescue is very much connected to her. I'm not sure yet how. Also, please in the comments, share what you think could be something that she could want in return, because again, I don't want it just to be, okay, her face everywhere. I want it to be something that could be to the detriment of Sienna and Keith, the community, or even the animal rescue itself. I want it to be something that maybe not intentionally, but where she sabotages the whole thing a little bit. Or maybe she expects moving forward to, she doesn't just see it as a sponsorship. Maybe it's 50K of it is sponsorship and 50K is an investment. And she's like, you know what? I want to return on my investment. So this animal rescue actually has to turn a profit. I don't know exactly how I would do it. That's still something fun that I think I would still want to figure out, right? I don't have to know everything from the get-go. It would be really fun if she were to kind of take a bit more control than she's supposed to, take a bit more credit than she's supposed to, all a bit self-serving. And then we have, of course, Malcolm. So he's not listed here in my overview, but Malcolm is evil. That's one of his traits. I was speaking about that youth center, so I think Malcolm might actually, Nancy, she's all about her image and just, wanting that in return, but Malcolm might actually do something a bit more devious in all of this. And so that's something that's still to be seen. But if you have any fun ideas, please let me know, because I think this is where the drama could come in, and that's where also the fun really starts. I also see myself having fun exploring all these different things that I don't usually do, like collectibles, this animal rescue, Keith and Santa finally getting their dream home. But I also want to throw in a wrench here somewhere. And so I think Nancy and Malcolm could very well be that component. Quick little interjection from future Gloria. So I got a comment on the previous episode right after recording this one that really inspired now and answered my question that I just now asked of how could Nancy make life harder for everyone? And so Arthur Kellerman, thank you so much for your comment, left the following comment. So they wrote, since the Landgrabs are a tycoon magnet family, it would be cool if they own the house where Keith lives and he kind of rents it for them. And I thought, okay, that is brilliant. I'm definitely taking that idea. Thank you so much, Arthur. I was thinking, if the Landgrabs rent the ranch out to Keith, great idea. Keith and Sienna could move in and start the animal rescue center sooner. So that's one thing. And since the Landgrabs own the property, they have a certain amount of leverage, right? I mean, they're literally owning the lot where Keith and Sienna live, where they're trying to live out their dream. And so they might take advantage of that and use this leverage to influence things in their favor. Maybe even threaten to increase the rent or kick Keith and Sienna out if they don't oblige to their demands. The 200K funds that, I've been planning to raise could still help Keith and Sienna own the property outright and escape the Landgrabs control. So we came into this thinking the 200K would be just to enable them to use the lot in the first place, but it makes so much sense. I mean, the Landgrabs would own a lot of property already, right? Theoretically, because they're the real estate moguls of the world, of the universe of The Sims 4. So instead of having to take out a mortgage to get the lot or to have funds raised to be able to move into the lot, I'm just going to have the Landgrabs buy the lot and then rent it out to Keith and Sienna. And it's fun. You might recall in the huge ranch, it has two lots that are rentable, so to say. We have the main residence, and then we have a small little bedroom, kitchen thing going on in the corner of the lot. The Landgrabs could actually rent out the property to two different households. So that would be interesting, whoever moves in the smaller property, to see who ends up joining maybe the rotational gameplay just by default. But I think that would be a great idea. That way we can move in quicker. We still might have to pay for the furnishings. I don't think they can afford that quite yet, but that's something I could figure out. But I think this is a great idea, and it puts the Landgrabs right smack in the middle of all this because they own the actual center, right? So they're so ingrained and involved and can really get their fingers dirty and see how they can, make things go into their interests. Still, of course, we have the open question of how might they take advantage. And remember, Malcolm is a little evil brat, so he's full of meddling potential as well. It's not just Nancy. So please do share in the comments if you have any ideas on how Nancy and or Malcolm can make life harder for everyone, how they can maybe make it harder for everyone to collect those funds, because it's not in their interest that the lot is purchased from Keith and Sienna. Of course, they'd have to sell it to them for that to even be possible, but that's something else to have to figure out. But yeah, please still let me know in the comments what you think and any ideas you have about them, or really anything about the story. I'm all ears. And then connection. So I think they should form a club. So I think Nancy, Christopher, so everybody leading their contributions in their individual households should be in a club together. And I want them to meet up regularly to touch base on, how things are going, what's the progress, and also to come up with new ideas on how to, raise more money for the center, or also once the center gets going, they'll still want to be in touch and make sure that things are going well. And who knows, like they might want to have ideas for events that can happen at the Moonwood Trading Post, things like that. I actually also think it'd be really fun. This is an idea I got from one of those videos, that there's like a group of volunteers also that works at the Animal Rescue Center, like also, again, a club of Sims that comes maybe once a week or something like that to clean, to take care of the animals, to maybe help out, to ask for donations when we have one of those animal ranch days. So I think that'd be really fun. So I've got quite a lot planned so far for this Animal Rescue Center. I'm really looking forward now having this common goal. It's really going to give that rotational gameplay a little bit more of that purpose. And also it gives me something impactful to do when I'm actually playing each household. So we're not just collecting collectibles for the sake of collecting collectibles or taking photos for the sake of taking photos. In the case of Lucas, I will be doing this with the goal to contribute to that common goal. So I think that's just a really fun idea. Of course, every household will have other goals specific to them. For example, Lucas, I already know, him and Keith. Keith is going to try to hook him up with a blind date and all sorts of stuff. Like there's all sorts of drama I've brainstormed in previous episodes that I really am looking forward to getting into. But I love the fact now that we have not only the relationships that are connecting them also Keith into the story, but also we have a common goal that gives each sim as an individual purpose in the grand scheme of things.